One of the characters that people are most interested in House of the Dragon is Daemon Targaryen. Once considered the greatest threat in the realm, Targaryen is a great warrior, one of whom many know not to mess with. Many fans have recently begun looking at the way that he not only fights, but behaves in comparison to Keanu Reeves in the John Wick franchise. Want to know what they have to say? Keep watching. First, let's talk about Daemon Targaryen. Daemon Targaryen was first introduced in the Game of Thrones series House of the Dragon. He was introduced in the first episode as the presumptive heir. The Dark Sister wielder is an incredibly talented and gifted fighter. Targaryen is impulsive and often acts in incredibly unpredictable ways. Viserys is the brother of Daemon who was selected by the Lords of Westeros as the successor to King Viserys. In the early years of Viserys ruling, Daemon had two jobs on the council, once as the Master of the Laws and once as the Master of the Coin. Based on the demands of Otto Hightower, Daemon was removed from both positions. This started a feud between Otto and Daemon, a feud which only continued to grow through the series. One of the main times that Daemon's fighting skills are brought into light is when Daemon takes it upon himself to compete to represent the House Targaryen by competing in the Heirs Tournament. While Daemon has had his fair share of defeat in the show, mostly stemming from his ego, Daemon had shown to be incredibly talented and a skillful fighter who knows his way around the fighting ground. Next, let's talk about John Wick. Aside from his portrayal of Neo in the Matrix movies, and Theodore Logan from the Bill and Ted franchise, John Wick is Keanu Reeves' most notable character. John Wick exists in an entirely different era than that of Daemon Targaryen. John Wick takes place in modern times, and instead of being a skilled warrior fighting to be the heir, he is an assassin who was made a name for himself in the world of assassins. When we see John Wick, he's retired, but things go down that forces Wick out of retirement. John Wick is an assassin that is rightfully feared by every person that knows him. So feared, in fact, that he has a long list of nicknames that people refer to him as when they speak of him in hushed tones, one of those nicknames being the ominous Boogeyman. Wick's history of killing began in the military, where he served as a Marine. His time in the Marines molded him into a serious man, who takes what he is and does very seriously. Despite Wick's professional being an assassin, he has a strong moral code and always keeps innocent people out of the harm to the best of his abilities. Now, let's discuss how Daemon and Wick are similar. Before we continue on, there will be heavy spoilers for the third House of the Dragon episode, second of his name, so be warned. The series has shown the burning fire that is the conflict between Viserys and his daughter Rhaenyra Targaryen. In second of his name, the conflict is a main focal point. While the episode may have been mostly about the conflict, the scene that stuck out to most fans was one involving none other than Daemon Targaryen. In the episode, Ione Daemon ventures off to the hideout of Crabfeeder. What happens next left fans shocked. Daemon seemingly surrendered by waving a flag and setting aside his sword. While Daemon's sword is picked up and he's left seemingly unarmed, many fans begin to consider the possibility of a surrender. Just as soon as the thought entered their minds, it left, as Daemon pulled out a dagger and got his sword back, taking out a horde of men with it. The scene is brutal and paced with enemies not getting any hints in, as they simply can't keep up, just like that of John Wick films. Daemon strikes with vengeance in his heart and shows the same fury that we see Keanu Reeves bring to the table. Let's move on to discuss what's next for Daemon. Once again, there will be spoilers ahead. If you're not completely caught up with the show, you may want to get up to date and then come back to the video. The recent events of the fourth episode of The Dragon left many fans confused as to what the future looks like for Daemon Targaryen after he was exiled by King Viserys again. Daemon's second banishing was much more serious than his first, which happened after he celebrated the birth of Prince Balon and deemed him the one-day heir. As with most people who are exiled from their homeland, where there's not a whole lot that Daemon can do in terms of finding a place to call his home, fans have decided that the best option for Daemon is to make a return back to his kingdom in the Stepstones. Fans think that this is the most likely option for Daemon based off the events of the Fire and Blood, which is the book that House of the Dragons is based off. In the books, just like in the show, Daemon is exiled from Westeros for the same reasons in the show and ends up going to Bloodstone in the Stepstones. Moving on, let's talk about John Wick 4. The newest installment of the John Wick franchise will come in 2023 and will show what happened to Wick since we've last seen him a few years ago. If you remember, the end of the third film involved Wick taking a brutal beating that even involved falling off a building. The fourth season will not move on that right away and will show him actually recovering from his injuries. The trailer for the movie showed him using his left hand to punch after losing a finger on his right. The trailer also shows the Bowery King, played by Lawrence Fishburne. John Wick is not the only one with a grudge against the High Table, and the trailer shows that Fishburne will be getting his revenge as well. The trailers reveal the new villain will be played by Bill Skarsgård. Skarsgård will play a sinister and vile man who is seemingly a very important member of the High Table. The trailer shows just how vile and evil Skarsgård is in the film, with a featured scene of him chopping off somebody's finger. The film will also feature Clancy Brown and Donnie Yen, who is a well-known actor and martial artist. While we're discussing John Wick, let's talk about the prequel series coming to Peacock. While the only time we'll be seeing John Wick in 2023 will be in John Wick 4. We will be seeing an addition to the John Wick universe. Set in New York in the 1970s, the Continental follows a young Winston as he attempts to be the head of the Continental Hotel. The series, of course, has no choice but to recast the characters due to the fact that there's an almost 50-year age gap between the first movie and the prequel series. The very important role of Winston Scott will be handled by Colin Woodall. Eomide Adagun will take on the role of Charon. There are also new characters that were introduced, such as Cormac. While we don't know much about the character, we do know that he's played by Mel Gibson, who will be the most known actor in the cast of the show. The show was originally set to be released to Starz in May of 2022. That, of course, did not end up happening, and the show was picked up by the streaming service Peacock instead of the original planned release date of 2022. The show will be coming out sometime in 2023. Finally, let's talk about what Matt Smith and Paddy Considine had said about House of the Dragon. Matt Smith was the target for many headlines. First, because of his involvement in the movie Morbius. Recently, Smith had been making headlines again, but this time for something good. Many have been talking about Smith's performance as Daemon Targaryen, as well as Paddy Considine as Viserys. Smith and Considine themselves even had some things to say on the characters and on the show in general. Smith was asked about his character's relationship with Viserys, to which he responded by saying that it's really complicated. He continued on to say he felt it was complicated because it was in many ways not only familiar, but normal. Smith said the different power dynamics are to be seen in any set of brothers, saying that there are times when one is in control of things, and then there are times when the other takes over. Considine added to the conversation by saying that Viserys is a tragic man, saying that while he is a good man who's making an attempt to keep things peaceful, there still exists the dragon inside of him, which has something Considine was not against, saying that it was something he wanted to bring out at a certain point. Many fans just can't wait to see what happens to Daemon Targaryen in the coming episodes, and most are very hopeful that they will get to see him go full John Wick mode again. Who do you think would win in a fight, John Wick or Daemon Targaryen? Let us know below. That's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.